Hello, everyone. Good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to the webinar on Sklodowska-Curie Actions Postdoctoral Fellowship 2024 Application Advice, brought to you by Euraccess Australia and New Zealand. This is a follow-up webinar to the webinar that we did on the 2nd of May, which gave you an overview of the postdoctoral fellowship. So it's really good to see so many of you who have already joining this webinar again. And also, it's great to see interest from so many of you joining from different parts of the world. Before we begin, please allow me to introduce to you our esteemed guest speaker with us. We have Ms. Lily Kankaya, who is the National Contact Point and the Program Committee member for MSCA for the Malta Council for Science and Technology. Many thanks for joining us so early, Lily. And I'm Nishant Sandile, Regional Coordinator for Australia and New Zealand at Euraccess Worldwide. For those who are joining us for the first time and for those who are joining again, Euraccess is an initiative of the European Commission that addresses barriers to the mobility of researchers and seeks to enhance scientific collaboration between Europe and the rest of the world. So when we say we provide information about European research, career opportunities, international collaboration, and networking possibilities. As I always like to say, since all of you are watching this on your laptop or phone, I'd encourage you to type Euraccess Australia and New Zealand on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, and follow us there. I'd also encourage to please use the Q&A function, just like last webinar, and not the chat function in the interface to ask any questions that you might have while Lily is presenting. We'll come back to take your questions after her presentation. And please note that we'll provide you the recording and the slide of the session. However, the recording will not include the Q&A, and hence I recommend you to stay for the entire duration if you want to hear responses for the common questions that applicants have. It's that time where we have a perfect segue to now pass on the presenter privilege to Lily so that we can explain to you a little bit about the background to postdoctoral fellowship, and then she'll move on to the actual application advice. The floor is yours, Lily.
Hello, good afternoon to everyone. First of all, thank you for this opportunity to present the MSCA call, the postdoctoral fellowship call in particular. Just give me a second so that I can share my presentation. Okay, so as already introduced, the national contact point for MSCA in Malta. Malta is a small European island, as you may know. So here is still morning. So good morning to anyone that might be following from here or from Europe. So what is the plan for this webinar? I'm going to quickly introduce the general conditions, eligibility conditions of the call for those 40% of you today that did not follow the previous session, which in fact, it is recorded and you may go back to it. I will introduce the evaluation criteria, what makes a good proposal, how to apply, and at the end, I will also speak about the opportunity that we have here in Malta for you. So just quick introduction that Marie Sklodowska-Curie Actions, or in short, that I'm going to refer MSCA, is part of the Horizon Europe program. And Horizon Europe program is the biggest program for research and innovation of the European Commission, with a budget over 95 billion euros. The MSCA part of the budget is 6.6 billion euros, and this is for 7 years period from 2021 to 2027. And Marie Sklodowska-Curie Actions forms part of Pillar 1, the Excellent Science Pillar, which is more characterized with bottom-up opportunities, also individual opportunities. Generally, the aim of MSCA calls is to equip the researchers with new knowledge and skills through different training programs and mobility programs. Here in that slide, you will receive later the slides as well, but there is the link to the actual MSCA website. And the postdoctoral fellowship call that we will be talking today is part of the 5 main actions of MSCA. So there are also opportunities about PhD students, about staff exchanges of any type of staff, and also some other opportunities such as MSCA and Citizens, which is like a big fair happening around Europe, and CoFund, which also has opportunities for postdocs as well. But once the projects have been funded, they would open a call where again you may be interested to apply. And all these opportunities you can find on the Euraccess portal. So now, What are the MSc postdoctoral fellowships? These are mono-beneficiary actions. So you will need to have yourself as the researcher and the host organization that you will be applying with a supervisor. There are two types: the European postdoctoral fellowships, which is the one that you will be applying for, because it's the one that where you will be eligible to apply. So you will be coming to Europe to perform your postdoc for a period of 1 to 2 years. The global postdoctoral fellowships is where the European or the long-term European nationals can go to Australia, for example, or New Zealand for the outgoing phase of the project. So it's important for the European fellowship that, of course, that the host organization has to be based in one of the EU member states or else associated countries. Now, the associated countries, there is a full list, which are the associated countries to Horizon Europe. It's available online, but generally these are countries that are spread around Europe. Let's say we have Israel, we have Turkey, Tunisia, Serbia, and so on, but there is a full list. What is important is that you have to, there is the so-called mobility rule, okay? So you cannot apply, the host organization cannot be in a country where you have spent more than 12 months in the last 3 years previous the call deadline. Also, another very important eligibility requirement is that you need to have your PhD already awarded, or the final defense has been done before the call deadline, which this year is 11th September. Another important condition is also not to have more than 8 years full-time research experience. Okay, I highlight here the word full-time because if you had part-time, this can be, there is a specific calculator where you can calculate that and you might be still eligible. And the 8 years is after the possession of the PhD, not before. If you have applied in the previous call and your score is less than 70%, then you won't be eligible to apply this year. So that's also another important eligibility condition. The duration of the fellowships is minimum 12 months, maximum 24 months. However, there is also possibility to add additional 6 months if the last 6 months are spent in a non-academic placement. So, as it sounds, the non-academic placement must be in a non-academic organization. Therefore, not a university, it can be private company, it can be public, any industry, NGO, civil society, and so on. Whatever it makes sense, of course, for the project. In addition, you may add secondments. Secondments can be placed anywhere in the world, including Australia and New Zealand. Of course, it has to make sense again for the project. So it's something that usually is very much encouraged, but is not a mandatory phase. So the call is already open. You may go and download the templates. Later in the slides, I will show you how to do so. The deadline, as I said, is 11th September. Okay, 5 o'clock Brussels time, but please do not wait until the last moment to submit your proposal because very often this call is very competitive. There is a lot of applications, and very often this portal can crash in the last moment. So please do submit in advance. You will then receive the results if you're selected or not in February. And then usually there are up to 3 months where you can sign the grant agreement. Is the host organization that is signing the grant agreement. And then the earliest you may start the project is in June next year. Once again, you have link here to the work program where you will find more details. There is another opportunity for the widening countries. Okay, so the widening countries are these countries which are less advanced in terms of research and innovation. There is again a list, but Malta is one of them. So we will find in the Form A, in the electronic form, when you start submitting the proposal, you will find the question, do you agree to be part of their fellowships? And this is only, of course, if your host organization is placed in one of these countries. So I would recommend that you click yes, because this is additional chance of funding for you. So what happens is there is no additional evaluation. It's just that if your proposal is not selected automatically for funding from the main MSCA postdoctoral fellowship call, is being transferred with additional budget, and it might be funded from these ERA fellowships, which of course have absolutely the same conditions as the traditional MSc postdoctoral fellowships. Here is what the funding looks like. It works, it's very simple. 1 month is 1 unit. So there is nothing, you don't need to prepare a detailed budget. You just have to specify the duration of the project and of course the country, the country where the host organization is based, and it will automatically calculate. But the living allowance is basically the main part of the salary, which is also being taxed, okay, according to the national taxes and contributions. There is also the country correction coefficient applied. So every country has a different percentage of that. For example, for Malta is 92.4%. For Brussels, for Belgium is 100%. But every country, there is also a list in the work program, and you can see more details. You also receive the mobility allowance, which is fixed to 710 euros. And if you have family, if you're married or you have dependent children, you also receive additional 660 euros, no matter if the family comes with you or no to Europe. Then there is some, of course, some unit cost for the actual host. So you have research, training, and networking contributions. This is for the trainings, for the publications, for any conferences, and so on, is to be spent again for you, but you do not receive it directly, but the host organization will need to spend this amount towards the project implementation. And there is the management and indirect contribution as well. So the evaluation criteria and a bit more details about part B. So this is how the part B, basically the template that I will show you how to download a bit later in the slides, is based on these 3 criteria. So we have excellence, which is 50% weight. Okay, so this is the most important part of the score. Then we have impact, and then we have the implementation part. So impact is 30% and implementation is 20%. So that generally you have these subsections that you see here on the slides. So you have to describe the objectives as part of the excellence, the methodology, the different trainings and the two-way transfer of knowledge, and your professional experience as well. For the impact, you have to explain how you are going to enhance the career perspectives and the employability. This is something that, of course, you do together with your supervisor. You have to outline the expected outcomes and impacts, being short-term and long-term. And also you have to speak about the expected scientific, societal, and economical impacts. The quality and efficiency of the implementation, that's where you will explain the work packages, the work plan, the Gantt chart, the risks, the hosting arrangements, the research infrastructure that your host organization will provide to you as well. A little bit more about the excellence part. So in the quality and pertinence of the projects and the objectives, you will need to specify here the specific R&I objectives and the overview of the action. Then you will find another section where you will need to explain the state of the art, but it's very important here that you have to explain how you will progress beyond the state of the art and what is the ambition your ambition and the ambition of the project as well. Then the proposed methodology. So you will need to explain the methodology and the approach, what kind of activities you're going to propose as part of the project. Did you include here interdisciplinary and intersectoral aspects of the action? This is something that is very much appreciated by the evaluators. The gender dimension, okay, so this is not about the gender group, but it's going to, you will need here to explain how the project, how your research activity might affect the different gender dimensions. You will also need to explain the research data management and other research outputs. Sorry about that. About the supervisor as well, the level of experience that the supervisor has. So how many maybe master students, how many PhD students, how many postdocs the supervisor had, how many projects in the past you funded projects, and so on. What are the new skills as well? You need to highlight here what are the new skills that you're going to have through the training program that you're proposing. And if you have added here non-academic placement, what will be the added value of this non-academic placement or the secondment as well? You have to very well explain this. Then it comes the last section of this excellence part of section where you need to explain your professional experience and your skills and what you will bring to the host organization as well, what kind of knowledge and so on. You will need to also highlight your career goals, and you will need to also have a draft career development plan, which will be at the moment of the proposal, it's just very draft outline plan that you will work together with your supervisor, but then it comes as a deliverable eventually as part of the project, a mandatory deliverable. So somehow this is the weaknesses that usually the external evaluators highlight as part of the excellence section. And this slide is prepared based on review of many evaluation summary reports. So you can see here that most of the time is that there is no enough information that was describing the methodology, or else that it's not clear, the detail provided is not clear enough. The state of the art has not been explained well. Please keep in mind that sometimes the applicants include here as a deliverable that they're going to review the state of the art. You cannot do that because you have to make your homework and do the state of the art review before you actually submit the proposal. So do not include a deliverable state of the art here. But here in that section, of course, you need to explain because very often it's mentioned that the state of the art, there were no references to it or was not sufficiently described. Then for the objectives, sometimes the objectives are too ambitious or unrealistic. So be careful. You need to have, of course, ambitious, but not over ambitious and realistic objectives. And you need to clearly describe them. So usually the objectives are linked to work packages as well. So do mention that in brackets. You can have like 3, 4, let's say, objectives and 3, 4 work packages that refer, research type of work packages that refer to these objectives. And then the interdisciplinary approach. Do not forget to explain it well. What are the different methods and what disciplines, different disciplines you're going to include as part of the proposal. For the impact section as well, very often not sufficiently addressed, too limited in scope. Very often the training plan as well, the two-way transfer is not sufficiently described. And also keep in mind that the target group audience has to be very well explained. So with each action that you're proposing, being a conference, being a publication, being participation in some kind of fair, or press release, or whatever, you need to explain who you're going to target as well. And very, very often, the intellectual property rights are not given enough attention. So do think about that. Do think about the exploitation. It's not only about communication, dissemination, but you also need to think about exploitation of the results. Also, very often, applicants confuse what is communication and what is dissemination. So communication is generally how you communicate the project activities. Communication starts from day one of the project. You just promote the project in general, while dissemination is when you have some kind of a result. You send it to another scientist or to policymakers to somehow see how it's going to be of their interest and then maybe exploit it. For the implementation, here very often there are quite a lot of mistakes in relation to deliverables and milestones, or not enough risks being mentioned. Every project has a risk. Don't overdo the risks, of course, but also you cannot say there are no risks. Always there are risks. Being that you may be not, let's say, capable to get the data that you require, or even it can happen that the supervisor is not available as much as you need him or her to be. Before, in the past, it was the COVID-19 risk as well. You can think of many risks. So do highlight them, do mention them in the specific section there. Work packages, do not include too many work packages, but do not forget to include a work package for management, for communication, dissemination, and exploitation. And in this case, we also need a work package for the trainings. And of course, on top, you include 2, 3, maximum 4 research type of work packages as well. Now, let's go to how to apply the Form C and the Form B. So everything you find, all the calls, not only the postdoctoral fellowship call, but all the rest of the calls, you find under the funding and tenders portal, which I hope that you already have registered. It's a very simple registration with an email and password. And I'm telling you that because otherwise you won't be able to download the actual templates. So in there you can just type Marie Sklodowska-Curie actions, and they will come the main course of MSCA, and of course you will see the postdoctoral fellowship call, which is already available and open for submission, as I told you. Again, in this slide, you have the direct link for the call. Then you have part A, which is basically the online forms. This is data about who you are, who is the supervisor, who is the host organization, the budget, which I told you also, but comes automatically. You have to include the duration of the project, and of course the country that you're applying. And there are then some ethics and some other questions that you need to reply. Generally, it doesn't take much time, but do not leave it until the last moment. And then you have part B. Part B is the actual template in a Word format, which is 10-page limit, okay? So it's very important to keep the limit, because the evaluators will only receive 10 pages. The rest of the information, if you include more, will be automatically cut off and will be not made visible for the evaluators. So the part B template is actually the 10-page one, which is part B1. So here is the one that we spoke about, the excellence, impact, and implementation sections. And there are the instructions. Okay, so when you download the template, you will see that there is a lot of instructions. What I usually suggest is that you will have it printed by your site, and you will have then the version that you're going to work on. You will remove, of course, all the instructions because as it is, it's already more than 10 pages. So you have to remove them and start filling the sections according to the instructions. The part B2 then has no page limit. And here what you need to include is your CV. Then you have one page per beneficiary. So here, if you have, of course, the host organization, but if you have a non-academic placement or secondment, you also need to include some information about them. And if there is if you replied to some of the questions of the ethics part A, that there are ethics issues, here you have where to describe them further. So when you press on start submission button, that is how you will see the actual platform. And you can see on the left side, download Part B templates. So click on there, download the templates, and they will come the Part B1 and Part B2 in a Word doc, as I said. But it's very important that at the end, when you're about to submit the proposal, you upload these forms in a PDF format. And the part A is up there where you can start edit forms, the green button. Very often, there are quite a lot of mistakes, and this is due to the fact that people do not read clearly the instructions. As I mentioned, pay attention to the instructions, print it separately, and follow it throughout the whole process. Because if you delete them, if you just read them and you delete them and you start filling, you will forget a lot of these small details, and these kind of mistakes that I'm going to show you now do happen eventually. So first of all, very often people click wrongly on the type of action. As I mentioned, there is the Global Fellowship and there is the European Fellowship. In your case, you will be applying for the European Fellowship because the Global Fellowship, as I mentioned, is for the European nationals or those long-term European residency holders that may apply for the Global Fellowship. In your case, being in Australia and New Zealand, you will be moving to Europe and you will be applying for the European Fellowship. So very often this is one type of wrong in-code detection. Then it maybe sounds funny, but the researcher and the supervisor are not the same person. Sometimes we do see that the researcher, the fellow, is including himself as the supervisor. This, of course, is not possible, and you will be automatically ineligible. And very often, applicants also confuse this non-academic placement and the secondments and the short visits that are part of the proposal. You might not have them, but if you have them, pay attention that the non-academic placement is only the last 6 months, so adding you additional 6 months of funding and making the project up to 30 months duration. The secondments are not adding additional months, but are happening throughout the project duration, and they can be up to 1/3 of the project duration. And they can be split in different location. It can be one location. It can be 1 month, 2 months. Then you can go again for 3 months. It's important that the maximum is 1/3 of the whole duration. And short visits are just usually, let's say, a week visit or 2 weeks visit, where you will go for specific training or conference and so on. So be careful also about those. In the form A, you will see that you will need to include this kind of basic information. So you will be asked to add contact. So the contact, of course, can be you, but you can add us more. You can add someone from the host organization that is part of the research office, the research support office, or project support office, whatever is called in the institution that you are applying, but is recommended to do so. So then, if you have a non-academic placement, you will need to add associated partner, and then you add the non-academic placement. But if you just have a secondment, do not click on add associated partner and do not include the secondment. Here again, how it looks. If you click on associated partner, basically it's just to provide the name of the organization, the address, the PIC number, of course, is very important for the host organization and for any other partner that you will be adding. The PIC number will be provided to you by the host organization, of course. And this is part of the form B2, the Word doc. So in here you have a table where you will give an overview again of the participating organizations. So first you have the beneficiary, which is the host organization. And then if you have non-academic placement, you do edit here as well, the PIC number, the name, the country, the name of the supervisor. If you have a secondment as well, you provide the same information. Also, if you have secondment, it's also very important to describe it in the form B1, the actual proposal, to explain where is the secondment going to take place, who the supervisor will be, how long, and why it makes sense for the project. The budget also is very often being automatically mistaken, and this is due because you select the country wrong. For example, instead of including the country where the host organization will be, where you will be moving to, you will include your country, which is not the one that will make the project eligible, because as I said, there is the mobility rule. You cannot apply for the country where you are living or residing or working for more than 12 months in the last 3 years before 11 September. Also, sometimes we see mistakes in the duration, but this is more often for the global fellowship. And the country coefficient is being like wrongly calculated if you include, of course, the wrong country. And again, when you include the secondments as associated partner, this is going to, again, confuse the system and the budget. So please do not, I repeat, do not include it as associated partners, but just describe it in the forms B. There is another thing that you have to keep in mind. So when you submit, you might have warnings or blocking issues. So the warnings come in yellow, and they're just to warn you of some, to remind you rather of some issue. Doesn't mean that you have not included this information, but it, for example, it will say, do not forget to include the non-academic placement or something like that. You might not have a non-academic placement, and you may, for example, get like you might think that you won't be allowed to proceed with the submission, but it's not the case. The warnings, they're just there to remind you of something. But if you see the red button, blocking issue, that means that there is something that something is missing or something is encoded wrong. It will tell you what exactly the problem is. So go back and fix the problem, because otherwise you won't be able to submit the actual proposal. Now, what makes a good proposal? Generally, that is, of course, not easy to summarize like that in 1 or 2 slides, but it's very important that you work hard on the proposal. Do not think because it's 10 pages do not leave it until the last moment, because it really requires a good thought, a good planning, and it shows then evaluators do get the feeling if the researcher has spent enough time on it or not. The idea, of course, is very important. It has to be innovative, also interdisciplinary. For MSCA is also important. The supervisor, the experience of the supervisors and the co-supervisors is also important. Of course, the supervisor has to be someone more experienced than you, someone who will be able to transfer knowledge to you. And it's also important to think of the host organization. So the host organization should have infrastructure and research facilities that will enable you to perform your research project. It's also important to include meaningful secondments or non-academic placements if you wish to, of course, to include them, but not, for example, to give you the example, just because, for example, you want to go back to your country, you include an organization that does not make really sense for your proposal. So think about it. Meaningful secondments and non-academic placements are important, and even are more important when they're intersectoral. So when you go from the academic to non-academic sector. Another very important thing to think is that you need to address all the evaluation criteria, and you have to, of course, fill up the forms up to the anything that is being asked, because each one of the evaluation criteria has subsections. Do address them fully, because otherwise you will be penalized in the scoring. And as I mentioned, this call is very it's not that easy to get these fellowships. The success rate is usually around 14–50%. So give the most of you and reply to all the sections. The training activities has to be very well planned. You have to highlight their new skills that you're going to acknowledge. And also, generally, the activities of the project have to be well described, like what conference, how many presentations at conferences, how many publications, and so on. You have to be very specific. Also, it's important to think about the acronym and the title. Attractive title will somehow be better presented to the evaluators. And there is something that I'll show you now, the criteria formula, which is basically this. So C for citations, include them, include resources, make the proposal interesting and inspiring. You have to sell the idea to the external evaluators. Be tangible and specific as much as possible. Then use encapsulations, like even in the abstract. Okay, so you will need to include in the like there is as part A, you will need to include the abstract, mention there who you are, why, where, when the project will take place, and so on. So be specific as much as possible. You can restructure the template by adding more subheadings, but do not change the titles, okay? So it is not allowed to actually change the titles of the template. The physical, the visual appearance of the proposal is also important. So you may use some graphs, some images, charts, and so on. And as well, the aesthetics. So you can highlight the most important text in bold. It's to make it more visually attractive to the evaluators. Now, I would like to present you one opportunity that we have here in Malta, which is PF2MT, and I also say a few words about additional tools that you may use that will help you with the proposal. So in Malta, we have this masterclass coming up next month. It's on 26 and 27 June here in our offices in Malta. And basically, if you select a Maltese organization as your host, then and of course, you identify the supervisor, you will be eligible to receive travel support and come to the training and attend the training, which is only going to be on site. Okay, we are not going to have online version this year. What is the funding? So for you being situated in Australia and New Zealand is 2,000 euros. So it's a fixed rate. You receive it after you attend the training, 50% of it, and the rest of the 50% you receive once you submit the proposal. For researchers based in Europe is 800 euros. The application form is very simple, very short. It's for us important that you have already been in contact with the supervisor who has been agreed to support you in this application, and of course to be based in Malta. I also have included here some links for you where you will see what are our host offers. And now the MSA-NET project, which can help you with additional tools. Okay, this is a project that is funded by the European Commission and has these very useful handbooks, which has each of the handbook. Okay, we have a handbook for each one of the call. In your case, now you will be interested in the postdoctoral fellowship one. We have a 2023 version available and 2024 version coming up shortly, but do not worry, they do not really differ. There's so minor changes ever since in the actual template. The handbook is based on the template and it gives you hints, tips and suggestions what to include and what not to include in the proposal in order to make it a successful proposal. I really suggest you to follow this handbook. It's really, really useful. Apart from it, you will find other materials on this website. If you type MSCA-NET project in Google, the website will come up and you will find it under scientific communities. But here as well, I have the link for you. Other useful documents, of course, that you need to follow. These are documents provided by the European Commission, is the guide for applicants. The version of the 2024 call is not yet online, but should be available, I think, in the next 1 or 2 weeks, very shortly. Then, of course, you have to look at the work program, the template. There is also a section with the frequently asked questions. You will find a lot of information there. There are so many other documents, such as the Horizon Europe Program Guide in general, the Model Grant Agreement. There is the guidelines for supervisors, the financial guidelines for MSCA. There is a lot of documents that if you have the time, you can, of course, go through. But there are some that are very important, and these are the ones that I'm mentioned here in this slide. How to find a host. If you haven't found one yet, you may use your own network contacts and approach supervisors that you met in the past. Of course, the EuroAccess portal has, I don't know how many, but thousands, I think, of host offers at the moment. The MSCA-NET project website also has quite a lot of host offers. We also have the MSCA matchmaking platform, which is a platform where researchers and organizations can meet up even using the website and discuss potential cooperation. The funding contenders portal, of course, where you will find the call, and under the call, you will find all these expressions of interest. And again, I just include our EuroAccess Malta page where you will find our host offers as well. Some more useful links. Again, these are the documents that I mentioned and a few others as well. And I think this was my last slide. So here you have my contact, just in case, especially if you are interested to come to Malta and do your project here. So with that, I ended my presentation. I don't know if everything was clear, but if no, I'm sure there's questions or comments that maybe I should reply now.
Perfect. No, I think that was very clear. And I think we did manage to solve a lot of queries that we have been receiving. If your questions were still there out and not answered, please do not hesitate to send us an email and we'll try to give a response to you in writing. We have already touched the 1 hour mark. I think with that, please join me in thanking Lily for her time. I'm sure that our audience got a lot of useful tips and tricks on how to apply for a successful postdoctoral fellowship application. I have a quick request. When you exit the webinar, there are 2 survey questions that we would request you to answer. With that, I think we wrap up today's session. Please allow me to reiterate to keep an eye on our social media platforms to get notified of the news and events from the European research landscape. And that brings us to the end of today's session. Signing off and wishing you a good week ahead. Thank you very much for joining us from different parts of the world. And thank you once again, Lily, for an excellent session.
Thank you very much for the invitation and good luck to everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.